So with that, I'd like to bring up our good friend Pascal Finette, who many of you know. He's one of the leading innovation experts in the US and actually around the world. And we've been very fortunate to have a long-standing partnership with Pascal. And Pascal's really helping us. I'm going to move to the next slide here, then welcome you. But he's really helping us demystify AI for the accounting and finance profession. So his bio's in the materials. And Pascal, it's great to have you with us today.
Thank you again for having me back on the town hall. It's always nice to be here.
Well, you're helping us with a lot of these resources, and once again, CPA.com, we're the technology and business subsidiary of the AICPA, and we're all about really empowering the firms and members in business and industry with all of these different, transforming digital technologies. And we've been on this project for the last few years related to AI. ChatGPT came out in the fall of November of 2022. So that's 3 years old. And the first couple of years, everyone's trying to put their arms around what Gen AI was. And really where we're now is, and you're going to hear from Pascal on this, because some things have dramatically changed over the last 100 days, is helping firms, select the AI tools, make sense of it. We also have this monthly newsletter, which I encourage you to subscribe to, and all of these links you can leverage to access these materials. But Pascal, what I want to, you and I had a great pre-town hall discussion talking about the state of these models, and this is something that we're really well aware of due to all of the tech companies that we're working with. But the last 100 days has just been dramatic. I mean, it was dramatic when ChatGPT came out. But why don't you share, what has happened?
Yeah, I think the headlines largely are the model races, right? Like this notion that you have Anthropic brings out a new version, OpenAI, Gemini, Grok, whatever model you want to use. And I think that's interesting context, but really the headline isn't, for me, about who's winning. That is an interesting question you can ask. And if you're a betting person, that's maybe an interesting area to invest into. But the headline for me is not who's winning, but what are the capabilities which we are unlocking for practitioners? And really what happened in the last maybe 100 days-ish is pretty remarkable. So if you go just back 6 months ago, like fall of 2025, we still used mostly just chatbots. And we had to put pretty strong guardrails around them. And they were useful. They were good at, I think we all have sent one too many emails refined by a chatbot. We have all probably used chatbots to summarize a document, etc. And we were all engaged in this notion about how do we become good at prompting. And what they couldn't do is they couldn't access properly files. They couldn't do multi-steps, etc. What happened with the latest set of releases, regardless which model you're using, roughly around the time frame of the change of the year, is that we now have these really powerful models which can do really interesting things. They can actually become very productive. They can reason through complex problems, and they can do multi-steps fairly autonomously and very reliably. And what I personally find interesting for the profession is we're now seeing these interesting signals emerging where initially you could use ChatGPT and upload, 1040 information and see if it can do something. And more likely than not, it couldn't. And now we're seeing partnerships such as, in the profession, Anthropic and IWIN just did a big announcement around a partnership where you actually run the text computation inside of Claude. So you marry the models, the probabilistic models from a company like IWIN with the generative AI capabilities of an Anthropic, and then suddenly it becomes something very different, and it becomes actually really useful. And I encourage everybody who's maybe a little blasé about AI, which I totally understand. It's very noisy, to look carefully what has changed in the last couple of months, even, because it is a very different world.
Yeah, well said, Pascal. If you just and Mark, yeah, I'll bring you in. But if you look, it is a very exciting time, in particular the tax area. We've talked a lot about tax research and what these large language models have meant to tax research, and it's transforming that category. But I think for the next tax season, Anthropic Cloud, that tool, it's taking all of the inputs now and then putting it into a tax engine. I think, and we're talking about putting some events on as we, close out this summer and go into the fall next year to talk about the future of the tax engines, which are going to be directly linked to these models. So Mark
and Pascal, forget about the whole idea of what the AI can do. It's how it's going to change and disrupt the business for our, let's say, our tax practitioners, right? And I'm already seeing in social media posts that a tax practitioner's client, they sent them their tax return. The client put that tax return into Claude, ran it again, and said, hey, why didn't you catch these deductions?
Yep.
And so this whole compliance piece that we had before, they're going to question against it.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden that strategic advisor conversation gets different. And should that advisor should the firm have done that first to say, if I were to run this through a AI engine so that I understand what my client may see, I'll be better prepared to have that answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a good segue to this next slide. So what is happening? Well, Mark, one thing I'll say just on that comment is you could have done that last year, 2 years ago.
Sure.
The client could have gone to TurboTax. Guess what? And that's an AI-based model. So maybe it's happening faster, but this is, the clients of the firms, small business of the firms, they want to outsource it to someone and be that advisor. So it's like, I'm not over, it's almost like a new toy out in the marketplace. So Pascal, what do you, this is important here, kind of how you break this down on and where you think firms should be focusing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because with great powers comes great responsibility. And I think one of the more common mistakes I currently see people do is because these models have become so good at writing code, they're actually excellent at writing code these days, that we conflate the question of can we build it with the question of should we build it. And my recommendation for anyone listening here is, unless you are and we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but unless you are a very large firm with lots and lots of resources, then your equation looks very different. Really think about, where do you actually want to invest your time and your energy and leverage these tools to the best of their capabilities. And we know for a fact that all of the vendors which you're currently using and all of the vendors you might be talking to, they're all working on integrating AI in really smart ways into their systems of record. So please do me a favor, don't come up with the grandiose idea of replacing your GL with a wipe-coded, an AI-generated version of it. Though, this is the interesting thing is, because these models have become so good at writing code, they're exceptionally good at writing these little quality of life tools, which you can use internally. So stuff you don't expose on the internet, stuff you don't expose to customer data, but things which can allow you to do things like, you've got a large, like data ingestion. You've got like a whole bunch of whatever Excel spreadsheets which need to be converted into something else. And this would have been a manual task for you. You can actually ask AI to essentially write your code to do this for you. And, in my personal practice, we do this all the time now. Every time I do something 3 times in a row, I'm like, well, AI should maybe should be able to do this. So my invitation for you is to really think, and this is also what we're seeing consistently now in the market. We have the CPA.com has a AI working group, set up an AI working group with practitioners and firms and vendors. And also in this group, we see this particular pattern emerge a lot, which is really your system of record is something you want to buy. You want to buy it smart. You want to buy it from people who are giving you powerful AI tools built on top of a really solid foundation. And then the little things which are idiosyncratic to your practice, to your particular practice, those things are ones where I would think about, can AI help me make them better, faster, smarter?
Well, Pascal and Mark, we got a lot of questions coming in here, which we're not going to be able to unpack today fully, but just a couple of comments on them. One is AI going to replace tax software? I mean, Pascal was just talking about systems of record. It's going to evolve it. There's going to be solution providers all the solution providers are going to be leveraging AI for the tax engine, for the automation of the inputs. So yes, it's going to be, it's not going to eliminate it. It's just going to evolve it dramatically. And as I said, I think next tax season, you saw this tax season was about tax research. Next tax season will be about pretty much all areas of the tax practice. But this slide is kind of helpful. It kind of addresses a little bit of that question of like, where is the software categories going?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we mentioned, and Erik, thanks for clarifying this, you have the SaaS solutions, the general ledgers, your tax research, etc. They will not go away. And you don't want them to go away. You actually want to use these things because they're really complex and they need to be, as you know, absolutely accurate. So you definitely don't want to vibe code this. On the flip side of that, as I mentioned earlier, the little scripts, little things which can make your life easier. The one thing I would encourage you all to try out a little bit more now is we're seeing these agentic desktop tools emerge. Claude has a product called Cowork. This is inside of their desktop app. You can give these desktop tools access to files, and you can essentially program, as in directing, not programming, directing an agent to do things with those files. As I mentioned earlier, I had this recent use case. I had literally like 20 plus Excel spreadsheets. They all needed converting into a specific format. Instead of me doing this, I threw this all into Cowork, described to Cowork what I want to do, and then Cowork dispatched an agent, looked at the files, and converted all of these files. So that is a pretty revolutionary step because it saves you a lot of time. I would encourage you to try these things out and play with them. Because again, particularly when it comes to AI, because it's such a fast-moving and evolving area, it's really important that we create lived experience, that we actually build muscle memory in these things. It's not enough just to like conceptually understand them.
Thanks, Pascal. Some questions that are coming in here, Mark, I'm going to throw one at you, and you can just give me a broad answer. But where's the safeguards? So like, what's going on with, we've got all kinds of, you got section 7216. Where's the data? How are you managing data? What are the controls around that? Lots of questions. People saying, where are you throwing all of this personal information? What are you putting into this?
Talk to your client about that. Yeah. Like I said, the client's going out and they're probably in some free version and throwing their tax return and all their personal data up there without it. So if I'm the firm, the first thing I'm going to say to them was, congratulations, you just gave all your personal information to the deep dark web, right? Versus what the firms have. The firms are already in an isolated scenario, right? So whether they're in cloud and using the tax engines that are out there already now, attaching on the enterprise versions of these AI solutions is going to be absolutely critical. I hope
there's going to be regulation, but there will be regulation on just, you already have laws in place, and there's going to be evolving regulation.
I mean, we're going to get the update in a little bit on AI and controls over that with COSO. Again, where I say that we as a profession have a critical piece of that. But all of our members today, you better have that locked down. You better be in an enterprise version, not a free version. I've seen some people say, well, I do tax research on Google and Gemini is good enough. And they have no guardrails of understanding if that information is actually really up to date or if it's, been preceded by other things that have come out. So it is important, I think, to be in a closed environment that you can utilize things and make sure that data is safer.
Right. And so we're going to, a summary slide here for Pascal and Mark. One of the tools that we have are the steps that a firm should go through in selecting the AI vendor. One of the most important things for firms to do right now is the due diligence and the proper selection of the tools that they're using. And you should, one question came in, are you explaining that to the broader marketplace? I mean, that's something we can do, and it's something that the firms can do with us.
Yep.
So Pascal.
All I have to say is truly, you have to learn. There's this notion which is called the jagged frontier or the jagged edge of AI, which comes down to a gentleman called Ethan Mollick over at Wharton Business School. And he points out that the problem with AI is that it's not binary. Like it's not like it can do this thing or it can't do this thing. It's this weird beast which is ever evolving, where it can do certain things really, really well, and then it fails flat on other sides. So the only way you can actually get a sense for that is by experimenting. So my recommendation, 3 things. Try out these agentic tools. They are where the future will go. You will very clearly see much more of this agentic stuff. Adopt your package solutions strategically. This goes exactly to the point, Mark and Erik, you were making earlier. And please don't overinvest into the custom build side. As appealing as it might be if you're a little nerdy, like I am, it typically is a dead end because it will just take you too much time. You will get a non-standard compliant solution. And it's often just the wrong turn to take on this road.
Well, Pascal, thanks for your partnership on this. One final question that I'm going to share that came in was, what should, small firm, I'm a small firm, what should I be doing to kind of get on this in a cost feasible way? This is the great equalizer. There is solution providers that are putting in place the tools for the small firms. With that said, even a small firm can do some of the things that Pascal described today. But this is an incredible opportunity for firms of all sizes.
Yeah, I mean, the AI tool by itself individually is not all that expensive, whether you're talking about Claude or
a Copilot, a controlled enterprise version, or if you're using BlueJ for tax research or things like that.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, Pascal, we'll have you back in open forum.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Pascal.
Thank you so much.